And I think when people sit by the phone as an actor or as a writer and your phone's not ringing, you get disheartened and, well, I might as well go do whatever it is.
What type of ambition do you think it takes to make it to the highest levels of the entertainment industry?
I think you've got to have a healthy ego, you just do, because there's so much rejection in our business that, otherwise you just go cry every night, But I think what you need to, you need to want it more than anything else. You really do, because there's so many other people who want the same thing. And tunnel vision helps. I've never taken no for an answer. If somebody says no, I find a way to go around it. But I would say I've always, family is more important to me than any of this stuff. And if it gets in the way of that, I don't want it, And life is too short. That's the other thing. If I'm not having a good time, I don't want to do it. So that's why I use the same people all the time, because I just like being with them. But there are people who only are interested in the fame and the celebrity, and then there are people like me that's only interested in the work. And that's the important part. And I think if you want the celebrity, you may get it for 10 minutes, and then it's going to go away. You need to work at the craft. And in terms of writing, I get up and I write every single day. I do not believe in writer's block. I think it's just a lazy person. Get up and write. Maybe you're writing garbage, but at least you're in the process of doing it, and then you can look at what you did and go, oh, I can fix that. Also, the thing that inspires me is not to see great work. I see great work and it's like, oh, I can't do that. But show me something terrible, I can go home and write for years. I can do better than that. How did that get on Broadway? So, anyway, I don't even know if I answered your question.
No, you did. You
Okay.
did. That's great. You said having a healthy ego. Did you always have that, or does it come with the knocks and bruises that you talked about in another segment, the physical bruises?
I always had a pretty good ego, I think. But I got most of that from the audiences I'd be working in front of. I knew that I had something that was, working. And nothing fueled that more than getting laughs, But not, when I say I have a healthy ego, I don't mean like, I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, you have to have a good sense of your talents and what you can and can't do. And because there's always somebody else ready to take your place too. And as I'm getting older, I'm seeing, people who are getting hired are younger and younger, and it's like, oh, didn't expect that one, I still look in the mirror and think before I look in the mirror, I still think I'm 35 years old, and then I look in the mirror and go, what did you do to yourself? But I think you have to have a healthy ego to succeed. But you also have to have a craft that you're working at all the time. I don't think I know anything. When one job ends and I start the next one, I feel like I'm brand new and I don't know what I'm doing at all, and then I figure it out. One of the reasons I was so into Lucy and I Love Lucy is I related in a weird way. Not only did I learn how to write from those people studying their scripts and learning timing from watching her and Vivian Vance and Desi Arnaz and William Frawley work, but a lot of times I felt like a Lucy character where she would be thrown into something and then figure out how to get out of it. And that's how I've sort of approached my entire career. I was like, I'll say yes, and then I'll go, okay, now how do I do this? And then try and figure it out. And that's kept it fun for me too. I think if I ever get to a place where I think I know everything, then the work's going to be terrible and I shouldn't be doing this anymore.
And forgive me, I think you told a funny story somewhere else where someone was asking for your autograph. I'm not sure if this was in New Jersey. and then they wanted, oh, can you do one for the girls in the office?
You know the story. Yes, I'll tell the story.
It's really good.
The first bit of fame, I guess, was, if you want to call it that, was when I did Jaws 2 as my first movie. So my hometown put my name on the marquee, and it was great. So I go to the theater, and it was a multiplex, and this lady comes up to me and she says, "Oh, can I get your autograph?" I said, "Yeah, sure." So I sign a thing. Would you sign one for my son? I said, "Yeah." What's his name? Oh, okay, and I sign that. Would you sign one for my daughter? My daughter's going to want one too. Sure. My neighbors are going to really want. We have to get one for my neighbors. So I'm signing and signing and signing. I said, "So did you enjoy the movie?" She said, "Oh no, we didn't see it." I said, "What do you mean you didn't see it?" She said, "No, we're going to see Grease because John Travolta's better than you." That was my first taste of fame.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That could be, a play could be made about that.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's,
yeah.
wow, that's,
Yeah.
I love it. We'll just keep it at that. That's, I love the story. I'm sure it was painful at the time, but.
No, it was funny. It was ridiculous. I always talk about writing fast, and that the Children's Theater helped me write fast, which is good for TV and all that stuff. But every year for about 30 years, we would do our TV, and then we would go back home and put on a show. So it was an original show almost every year. And so there's one year we get a call from the theater. We have to start selling tickets. So what's the name of the show? And we didn't have anything written at all. And I said to Jane, well, call it Do Not Disturb. It'll take place in a hotel room. We'll figure it out later. So we give the name Do Not Disturb to the theater. They start advertising it. And we figure, we got a couple months, we'll be fine. And we started trying to sell our pilots, like it was pilot season. And we didn't sell a pilot, so we thought, okay, well, we can sit down and start writing the show. And I get a phone call from the set designer. "Billy, when am I getting a script?" I said, "Oh, we're still working on it." We hadn't started. And I said, "It's a hotel room, so I want a bed in the center, I want a door over here, I want a window over there, a door to the bathroom, and a closet, and think of the Plaza Hotel." And he went, "Okay." And so he started designing the set, and they're still selling tickets. And so we finally, we sit down to write it, and we fall into we find the I Love Lucy original pilot episode that's never been seen. We find it. And so we have that, and we go to CBS and we sell it as a special to debut footage that no one has seen in 40 years. So we're putting that together, and now the clock's ticking, and we don't have a show. And I get calls from the actors, because we picked, we called a couple people and said, "You're going to be in the show." And they said, "Great, what are we playing?" "You'll see it, we'll find you." So we ended up getting on the plane to start rehearsals with one scene written, and we opened in 10 days.
Oh.
And it sold out. And we didn't have a clue what we were doing. So we had decided that we were going to do little vignettes, little one acts. So we had the one thing written. And we get back there, and the actor's like, "What are we playing?" And I said, "Well, we have a new way of rehearsing this show. We're going to rehearse the first scene till it's perfect. And then we'll give you the second scene." So we spent 2 days rehearsing the first scene, and at night we were going, "Okay, what's the second scene? I don't know. How about that?" So we would come in, and the actors caught on to us after a while, of course. So we got all the way up to the dress rehearsal, to the tech rehearsal. And the show was too short. It was sold out, and it was too short. And it was like, Jane said, "People don't care if it's short." I said, "It's too short. It's really too short." So I said, "We'll write one more, but I'm not learning any lines." That's the rule. Whatever it is, I'm not going to have any lines. So we wrote a scene where Jane was on a date with her new boyfriend, and I was her ex-boyfriend, but I was mute. And we did the show. The show opened. We got away with the whole thing. And the critics reviewed the show and said that they especially liked the scene with the mute boyfriend who has no voice. And that was the one we wrote the night before we opened. So we can write fast, but if we ever ask you to be in one of our shows, ask to see the script first before you say yes, because it was a sort of a madhouse, and the actors didn't forgive me for that one at all.
Well, I think you've said that when you are forced to write fast, that a lot of the overthinking gets out of the way.
Yes, I think that's actually good, and actually worked for this show. Is when you've been doing it enough and you have an actual craft, you don't have time to second guess. You know, we wrote the Suddenly Susan pilot in 24 hours. That's in my first book, and that's a good story, but it's in my first book. And the Wayans brothers, same thing. We were brought in at the last second, and we had to write that pilot in 24 hours again from scratch. These were, and these shows got on the air and did quite well.
Sure.
And this Do Not Disturb play was the same thing. But when you don't have time to second guess yourself, you just push through, and if you've been doing it long enough, you sort of know what you're doing. We lucked out. We really lucked out.
I'm hoping we can go back to when you said having like a healthy ego and really wanting success in the entertainment industry better or more so than others, or knowing that there's always someone kind of coming up behind you. What do you think stops people from having a successful career?
Well, you have to be able to sit through long periods of nothing. You know, your phone doesn't ring. What we did, and we always did this, we always had three things going at once. We'd be writing one thing while we're performing one thing, and then we're talking about a third thing. And if one thing doesn't work out, you jump to the other thing. That's one of the reasons I was directing too. I'd go direct plays, and you've got to keep moving, you know. And I think when people sit by the phone as an actor or as a writer and your phone's not ringing, you get disheartened and, well, I might as well go to whatever it is. I think it's important to surround yourself with people who are better than you at what you're doing, so you can learn from them and improve. But I think if there's anything else you maybe like as much, go do that. Just go do that, because this isn't for you. You know, I know people who are, I didn't want to miss my friend's wedding, so I turned down that role. I was like, well, okay, okay, but you're not going to get another shot like that. You know, you got to be able to sacrifice stuff until you get to a place where you can pick and choose stuff. But when you're starting out, you gotta be into this 100%.
Interesting. So always have several things, sort of be juggling several things.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times when people are actors anyway, filling out their resumes, and they say they can drive a stick shift, they know how to ride a horse, and they don't. Well, go do that now. The more experience you get, the more better off you're going to be anyway.
Sure.
And it's more fun.
Sure.
More stuff you can do.
Learn a stick in a hilly area.
I did.
So have I, yeah.
I did. It was bad. I learned, I was doing the movie Taps, and they told me, okay, you're going to drive the Jeep in the middle of this scene. It's like, I don't know how to drive a Jeep and it was a big, complicated scene with the tanks and all this other stuff. And I thought, oh, God. So they took me out the night before in a 2.5-ton Army truck and taught me how to drive a stick in that.
Oh, wow. In
the hills of Pennsylvania. And I was able to do it, and I was still like, this is going to be such a complicated setup. I'm going to get fired. I'm going to wreck the shot. So they put me in the Jeep, and right before we shot, Harold Becker, the director, went, oh, you know what? I can't have the noise of the engine on the... Put a rope and just drag him in. It's like, thank God.
Oh, wow.
Thank God. But I did learn how to drive a 2.5-ton Army truck.
Were you a workaholic before your quote-unquote Hollywood career, or does being in the business make you so?
I was definitely a workaholic. Everybody in my family is a control freak workaholic. We just are. My father was an ex-Marine, and he didn't care what we did as long as we did it as best we could. He didn't care if we dug ditches, but you better dig the best ditches and that kind of thing. Not that he was a hard guy. I mean, he was a great guy, but we got our work ethic from him. And but we're all of us are control freaks, and my sister, my brother, my mother, my father, me, my grandmother. We were all like that. So, but it was always the joy came from doing the work and seeing your finished product. That was always great for us. Each individual thing.
And in being a control freak, what if you have to relinquish power to someone else who's a decision maker, a showrunner, a theater owner? How do you say, okay, this is where I take off my hat where I'm in charge and I sort of bow down?
I couldn't do that when I first started. It was tough. I like the inside. I was always biting the inside of my mouth. Shut up, Billy. This is, it's not your show. It's not your show. But after a while, you have to learn. I mean, as a producer, you have to learn to delegate. And the best way to be a producer, as far as I'm concerned, is you hire great people and then just let them do their jobs. I mean, as much as I'm saying I'm a control freak, I'm not in terms of if you're working for me and you're doing the costumes or something, I absolutely let you do the costumes. I'm not going to be butting in and tell you how to do your job, that kind of thing. The only thing that I will be possessive of are the scripts and the actors' performances. I don't want to hear the network saying, could we do it again and this time have her do? No, we can't. Next. And Jane and I used to, I would always make Jane sit in the green room with the network people and the studio people, and I'd be on the floor. And there'd be a phone that would go back and forth, and after every take, that phone would ring. It's like, yes? They want you to do that again, and this time have her say such and such. Oh, we did that this afternoon, and we hadn't. And we did that this afternoon. We got it. We're covered. Boom. Or else, actually, I would pick up the phone. She'd tell me that, and I'd say, "Tell them I go to hell." And I hang up, and she'd turn to them and say, "Oh, we already shot it like that." But yeah, the irritating thing, especially coming from the theater and coming into TV, is having people who have no idea how to perform or produce comedy telling you how to produce or perform comedy. I hated that. Hated it. And when you get to, you have to be, if you're Norman Lear, nobody's telling you anything, that kind of stuff. But I was never quite at that level of tell people to leave me alone. I always had to answer them. I learned from Peter Noah, who ran Anything But Love, when I did that. The best way to deal with the network and the studio people was to talk first. He'd always have all his writers with him when you had the meetings with the network and the studio after each run through. And before they could give you their notes, he would tell them what was wrong and how he was going to fix it, to the point where you had to be stupid to argue with him. You had to feel stupid if you argued with him, and you go, "Oh, that was great," and we'd leave, and it was like, that was really expertly done. Always take control of those meetings. Because too many times you'd see people like, "Oh, yes, I can change that. Oh, yes, I can change that." Well, it's just... Here's the thing I've learned in the business after doing this for 1,000 years. Nobody knows anything. They really don't know anything. If you want to take a class of, how to do this, he can tell you how to write a script, but how many scripts has he written? How many, that kind of thing. And there's no right or wrong way, Because I write fast doesn't mean that everybody has to write fast, but that's the way I work. And I think the more you do, the better you get at whatever it is you're doing, whether you're performing or you're writing or you're producing. The more you do, the better you are. That's just it.
And so there's the craft component, but then there's also navigating personalities.
Oh, yeah.
That's its own probably master class.
I lucked out because Jane, my partner, was she was the attack dog. She protected me, and she would deal with the network. She would deal with the studio. She would deal with the prima donna actors if we had them, and I would be in the writers' room. That was my thing, and everybody thought I was the sweet one, and Jane was this, tiger. But what they didn't realize is I'd be going, all right, now you go in there and you tell them. And then she'd go and do it, and they'd go, boy, she's a bitch. Well, she wasn't. She was protecting us, you know.